guy
Oh, really?
at that brewery. So I figured it's good beer too. So, yeah.
Done and done.
Brittany has been working with JP about the wine for the food party.
Good.
Brittany, you're such a pro.
He's awesome.
You are both awesome.
He's like the nicest, like easiest person to work with. I love him.
He says the same about you.
Because wine's all pretty good.
I can
It's like finding links to websites right now. She'll suck
No
us up.
judgment.
But if it's wine related, she's awesome.
That's how I would do.
Corey, isn't this your last day?
Yes.
Like, when do you, come on, when are you leaving? Oh, I'm going to take you to lunch first. That's right.
Yeah, I like to milk all the last 3 things from you that I can get possible.
I have my credit card. So you're like
Actually,
going to California.
you know what?
Is there any exit?
That's
Is there any
so
like
funny 'cause I never
any
got
transition things that you should like?
Yes.
Like
When I
take care of
did
this,
my last-
take care of this clothes.
When I worked
Yeah,
at
that's
my
the
last
Brittany.
job, they walked up to me and she was like, give me your keys and credit card. And I was like, oh, well, I'll give it to you by the end of the day. She was like, I was told to take it now. I was like, okay, nonprofit. I didn't just like give you my blood, sweat, and tears for 2 years. I was gonna steal. That's funny. I never got Callie's card back from her when she left.
I mean, she didn't do anything with it. Of course not. Yeah.
It's really funny. Are you gonna be I said I never got Callie's card back when she left.
She's probably still using it.
No, she's not.
Why do we have it? Why do we have this and that?
She's not because
When are you hit the road?
30th. Yeah, I gotta figure out what to do with things like recording and all that jazz. Yeah. In my car.
You both have good birthdays. You have the same birthday.
We did, yeah.
We did Stella's for lunch.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, keys. No, what happens if
Jill and I counted. It's like 12. You were counting 12 yesterday. No, that was the holiday. We were kind of. You guys can't. Our alarms went off. Who could do it well?
It was Anisha. Like, we need to
it
fix
was
it.
Anisha. She couldn't get the back door
Yeah, I
open,
know.
and so she went to the front, and I was like, Anisha,
I was like, can you need to come over and like help me get it? Be like me and Sarah.
I've actually climbed with this. Because I don't know their kids, so I like,
Oh my God. You know what's like Andy, the video cameras?
Yeah, Corey told me she
Climb the
to
pig.
be
I
fair,
never climbed that fence. We built that fence intentionally so that vagrants like you, it would be hard for them to climb. I now know it's climbable.
it is climbable. You stick your toe in a little thing and like
Well, that's a little toe.
sneak over and.
Yeah.
Two dudes in the room couldn't get our toe in there.
But to be fair, it was dusk, so I made sure that I could work at broad daylight so people weren't getting ideas.
You're a criminal in the making.
Were you wearing a ski mask?
She looks like a criminal.
Yeah.
It was actually.
To be fair, I waited out until it got dark.
Taste the joint for a good couple hours.
Knock on wood, when we built, when we designed that wall for like where we live, we want it to be pretty enough to be pretty, but we also want it to be really good, right?
Okay, I'm
And
just,
so,
I'm
like,
gonna
when we
email
come
it
back from church, I always
to
look in the backyard
people's in
like,
my site.
how is it, how would you get like 3 other kids?
Yeah.
Alright, so Julie,
No way.
and
Really?
so
Yeah,
I
that
want
backyard, I
to
would've,
make
like,
sure Doug is
started
on
running.
here,
Right.
and
It's not gonna.
Corey's on here, and
Because
you're
it's
on
so,
here,
no,
okay.
it's because it's so nice looking that you'd be scared to do that. Like,
Really?
I would be like, that's
Okay.
too nice. But like a
I don't
place
think
like
we'll need this anymore,
Hanging
we
out
don't
on
need
that
this
damn
anymore,
couch.
we don't need this anymore.
Alright, so we should
I
tell
love
you.
that.
Okay, so he needs
Yeah,
to
but
come
we have
in.
a big back there.
Yeah, she's
Are you guys, can we say you guys are here? What's going on? What do you guys
We're live tweeting, you know, so any problems, we'll fix it. Get people, yeah.
So like, hey, that was dumb, or?
Be like, God, blah, blah,
Get a
blah.
load
and
of
you
this
can't stop talking. No, it's
It's new, he cried again.
just, we just, like, you know, when you're saying something cool, you can tweet, Andy just is talking about this now.
Cool.
Join the
There's
tweet
a
chat.
solution.
Yeah.
Maybe I should do that. Keep there.
So
you're live right now, but we can go ahead and just leave it until noon. Just go ahead and mute.
But it's a good side.
Some devil. I love Juilliard.
That's on the internet now.
You'd have to join just a little bit. To the original group? Oh, that's yeah. Got it. Okay, perfect.
Moxie LaBouche. Brittany!
You need to, and you need to log in too. And if there,
I
if
peed
there's my people,
yesterday playing with my login on. Put me on mute. You know to edit. I mean, put me on mute. What are you kidding?
Yeah, so you can put the link up there.
Oh, this is the one.
Yeah. So the one you should just have a new link that says okay. How do we know how to do that? I think it's just down here. So right now it's just.
Mute yourself as well. Just so that if you keep going to your.
Are we ready? It's 12 almost. So I'm kind of talking to myself, aren't I? So I'm kind of talking to myself, right? Like, hey, everybody out there in TEDx land, that's the way it took.
Yeah.
That's the voice, right? Yeah, but I was really talking to people there. I could see them. Here I'm going to be.
Some people here. You have a little audience here.
Okay.
But yes, it's like a talk show. So you will just be doing that thing. Do you know your agenda?
Okay. Yes, I know my agenda. 5 minutes overview, 20 minutes content, 5 minutes Q&A.
So good.
You think this is my first rodeo, sister? Doug has horns. He's even meaner than he was very often.
Okay, 12 o'clock. Do you want to get started? Let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
You have viewers.
How many?
7. So down there's the number of viewers.
Can the viewers see how many other viewers there are?
I don't know. They probably can right now.
Tim Couliard, can you hear me?
So I can. Yeah, can you hear me?
All day.
Cool.
In my psyche, I can hear you.
I think what we to mute themselves and to wear a headset to avoid feedback if they do want to talk. Okay.
How do I ask people to interact with me through this thing?
So Doug is there to do your to get the questions from Twitter, and he'll let you know the questions that come in.
So just tweet at TEDxRVA.
Tweet at TEDxRVA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or I'll put a thing on Facebook right now that says ask questions in the comments here.
Great.
So Facebook, Twitter, and then is there a chat box in Google Hangout?
On the event page. I'll look at the event page.
So
There you go.
any of those 3 options.
Yeah.
Tweet at TEDxRVA.
Tweet at TEDxRVA, comment on the, I'm putting a call out for questions on Facebook, or they can ask in the chat box on the Google Hangout invite.
That's a lot for me. I'm going to say it right now.
Okay, here it is. It's just say
Okay, thank you.
these two.
That's just a language I don't know,
You want me to
Doug.
take this thing over?
Yes, I don't know. I don't know language that includes social media. That's like it's like talking like Singaporean. Singaporean is sweet. Okay, everybody, how is everybody? Here we are. It's Friday the 18th. No, what day is it? The 18th of March, and we are going to be together in 3 weeks from today.
Yeah.
3 weeks today, we'll be at TEDxRVA, the 4th annual, and it is going to be at the Carpenter Center starting at prompt 9 a.m. And we have an amazing roster of, what is it, about 18 talks and about 4 experiences.
We are selling tickets at a rapid pace, but please encourage others to buy them because we want the right people there that have passion and conviction and want to create the conversation for Richmond. And it is all about this 4th year, which is under the theme of artful, and it's the artful guide and lens that we're using this year. And it's not just art is art, it's artful conversation, it's artful engineering, it's artful choreography, it's artful perfuming, it's artful drug intervention, it's artful trauma-informed care specialist. It's how artful applies itself to being a method or a process of an outcome of really anything. And we love this lens and this theme because it's given us amazingly beautiful creative license to pull onto the stage 17 amazing talks and then 4 experiences. And so join us on April 8th, pass along the conversation, pass along the link of TEDxRVA, and for the next half hour or so, you can either tweet at, what is it? TEDxRVA, or comment on the Facebook page, or
That's it. That's good.
and that's it. And as you guys know, I'm so socially media savvy that's all I can get out on that. So join us online. So here we are, and what I'd like to do is just give you a nod to, first and foremost the team at TEDxRVA who have been busting their humps trying to make this next event on April 8th the best event we've had so far. And I can honestly say that I was with a reporter this morning talking about the TEDx, and I could do nothing but brag about the 40, 50 people that are working nearly full-time hours to put this on for the community. And Jim Ukrop is a friend and mentor, and he said to me years ago that community makes community. And this is about the time when I well up and start to cry because it's just the best version of community making community. And April 8th is going to be an amazing product, but the process, the planning, and the passion of this group of people who have been involved in this, it's nothing short of humbling. And so just an enormous big nod to that team, and Venture Richmond for being the executive producer, and to Farah, and to Risa, and to Leah, and to Paige, and to Lloyd, and to Doug in the back, and to my team, Brittany, Courtney, and Corey, and Namisha, and just everybody's just been busting it. So please come and enjoy all of their work. I am a humble servant of theirs in terms of just being there on that day because they've done all the work. What I get to do every year, which is a very privileged thing, and I don't take it lightly, and I kind of am awe of it every year, is the fact that I get to go to TED. And I was invited years ago, and I get lucky enough to be invited every year, and I've gone for the last 8 or 9 now. And what I wanted to do for just 15 minutes or so is to share some of the insights and some of the cool things that came up through the 5 days I share mid-February. And so what I'm going to do is I have with me my kind of classic think cards, and I've put on them, I don't know, 15 or so thoughts, ideas, insights, observations, cool kind of sources of inspiration that just came off the stage that day that I thought were shareable and interesting. And so let me just start with the first one, and it says, what have I done since I was here a year ago? And in my journal on the left-hand side, I write all the things that are internal dialogue in my head. On the right side of my journal, it's everything that was content on the stage. So on the first page on the left side, it said, what I wrote down, what have I done since I was here last year? And I just thought it was really important to share that one because I think this is one of those rituals or kind of ceremonies that I go to every year that allows me to have those life milestones, whether it's a birthday or anniversary. What are the things you do every year in order to have a milestone every year you look at and be able to reflect back on? So Joe Gibbia from Airbnb, the founder of Airbnb, spoke, and he talked all about what is the possibility, and is it possible to design for trust? The more you like someone is the more you like someone is the most trusted aspect, but a high reputation or references trumps similarity. So what it's saying is familiarity is not the biggest thing in terms of being the most trust. It's the most references, the most people that talk about you as a good person, that actually trumps familiarity or similarity in terms of building trust. And he built his entire business model on the idea of commerce with the promise of a human connection. And I'm going to just go through, as I go through these things, just easy language and nice sets of tight language and frames that I thought are interesting. In lieu of giving you the whole backdrop of the talk, of the speaker, of the person and their background, I want to give you just language that I thought was powerful. What if homes were designed for sharing versus isolation? What if cities were designed the same way? What if staying at a stranger's home was different or better than staying at a stranger's home versus welcoming someone into theirs? It's this idea of framing and the idea of finding one stranger in your life every day. Brian Stevenson from the Injustice Project. If you haven't seen his TED Talk, please watch from last year. It was one of the truest and most genuine standing ovations I've ever seen at TED in any engagement I've ever been to. He got up on the stage after the architect of the Injustice Project talked about the architectural kind of curation of that venue, and Brian said in poetic terms again, "We are not free in America. We are burdened by our legacy of its social injustice." He said racism is alive and unfortunately very well here in the United States. And it's just about timing and topicalness and kind of relevancy. And when you think about these words coming out of Brian Stevenson, who runs a project called the Injustice Project, inside of all that is going all that's going on in terms of the political implications of the world, geopolitical implications around the world, and otherwise. And his last line really resonated with me. I want to share it with you when he said, "Slavery didn't end, it's just evolved." And it's one of those lines that I circled and starred about 10 times because it was one of the things that grabbed me and kind of held me at attention a couple weeks ago. Chris Anderson, the curator, had this great kind of it was about a half a day, 4 hours, when he took us on the inside of TED. And TED has had this illustrious 30-year career. And he kind of stood on the stage with all the leaders of all the aspects of TED and talked about TED Med and TED Institute and otherwise. But to date, and currently there are 200 million TED Talks being watched monthly right now. The other interesting statistic, and especially for us TEDxRVA fans, is we are one of 15,000 TEDx's that are being held in 170 countries, and there are 72,000 talks online from TEDx's around the world. A little kind of source of inspiration, a little bit of mental sorbet for you. For those of you who don't know Rihanna Giddens, who sings independently and also for the Carolina Chocolate Drops, just download her music. She sang on day 4 and it blew my mind. So this one is an interesting, and if you're not familiar with Adam Grant and his new book called Originals, Adam has become a friend of ours in another organization I'm in, and the guy's just amazing. Please follow him, please read his other books, and please read his new one, Originals. But he got on the stage and he talked about the idea of originals and kind of first early adopters and then procrastinators. And an original is someone right in the middle. It's not the early adopter and not the procrastinator, the person in the middle. And he said waiting to get it right is more important than rushing to do it first. And I'll come back to Adam in a few minutes. Nalina Nadkarani, who is a forest ecologist, talked about the idea of seeing nature imagery to reduce stress. So she created hour-long vignettes of nature, just water streaming. And if you're familiar with CBS Sunday Morning, you know the last, what used to be 2 minutes and is only a minute now. And I actually wrote an email to CBS Sunday Morning saying, give me 2 minutes back because it was the best 2 minutes in TV. She made hour-long vignettes and little documentaries of just nature. And then she saw that if she put that in front of prisoners while they exercised, that 90% of them would take their improved mood and calmness back into their cells. And this is the line that she closed with, the power of nature on the nature of humans. And I share that with you as well. This was fascinating. A woman got on the stage and she talked about the idea that a lot of us think about every day, staying healthier and losing weight. And she said, losing weight, if you imagine yourself looking good, it actually is bad in helping you improve. Let me say that again. If you imagine yourself looking good, it actually is bad in helping you improve. Then she held up a little 3D model of herself. And she had a 3D model of herself made, which is an absolute replication at that level of authenticity in terms of size, dimension, and shape. And she uses it as a tool to measure against the decisions of how she eats and how she goes about her fitness, and does it every 90 days to measure her progress. And so she said, ditch the scales and get a 3D version of yourself every 90 days to see the change in the progress you're making. This one blew me away. And in my 9 years of going, I can say that I've had a standing ovation moment where I jumped on my chair with wells of tears in my eyes of authenticity about 5 times. And Al Gore wouldn't have been one of the people I thought I would do that. But 10 years ago, I guess I've been going 10 years because I saw his first speech when he talked about inconvenient truth. And if you're not familiar with that video, watch that. But Al Gore has turned into all the things that we want and need out of this idea of sustainability and the Earth's kind of work that we're trying to change. And he talked about, I just wrote down, it's likely one of the best talks on the stage I've ever seen in every dimension. And why I share that with you is because we should be looking for authenticity and passion. Al Gore, at the end of his 18 minutes, was absolutely exhausted. He was sweating to the level of no one I've ever seen sweat on a stage. He put it out there. He gave himself all that he could in terms of sharing the story. And he asked 3 questions. Do we really have to change? Can we change? And will we change? And then his last line was really powerful. And he said, after a final no comes a yes. And on that yes, the future world depends. Al Gore stood up for what he believes in so much in terms of the change in the climate in which we deal with every day. And I share with you the need for you to go online and watch that talk. There was a woman who got on the stage, and I'm not going to share her name, but we're going to show her video at TEDx on April 8th as part of what we do every year, is share 2 or 3 videos that came off the main stage. And I'm going to be sharing hers, and it's all about the idea about teaching girls to code. In her opening line, she walked out on the stage, and I think a great TED Talk starts with a belief system of poignantness and passion. And she walked on the stage and she said, we're raising our girls to be perfect and our boys to be brave. And as a father of 2 12-year-old girls, it really grabbed me. And she said, girls have a higher IQ and they're more likely to give up versus boys who are revered and reveled in the challenge. Men, and listen to this one, men will apply for a job if they meet only 60% of the qualifications versus women who have to meet 100% of the qualifications before they feel as if they can apply for a job. It's this idea of socialization of perfection. And I share that one with you because it's one that I believe in, is a belief. If I'm giving a TED Talk right now around something I believe in deeply, those who know me or would like to know more about it, let me talk to you about the idea of imperfection. I think it's the thing that makes this world go round. There ought to be more of it and less perfection in the world. Maybe it's coming from a guy who's very imperfect. Maybe that's why I like it so much. The guy from Linux, the software inventor of Linux, got on the stage, and his name's Linus Torvalds. And he's an amazing guy. This classic introvert got on the stage, and he walked out on the stage and he said, hi, I'm Linus, and what I'd like to talk to you about is the software I created and why I created it. And I created it, and if you know Linux, it's one of those ones that have kind of universalized software, and it's almost on every application or embedded into everything. It's almost an Intel Inside around the world. And they showed a picture uniquely of his workspace, and it was a stand-up desk with cords running off of it in a really kind of what looked like a modest laptop computer and papers and magazines and things stuck to the wall. It looked as if it's just the most uninviting kind of work environment, and that's where he works. And he said, I created a software out of a desire of not wanting to work with other people. And I just thought it was powerful around the idea of designing your work and designing your life around your absolute inherent kind of DNA strand. He is a classic introvert. He said, I want to work with people with good taste. I want to work with people who see big patterns and instinctively know the right things to do. He also said, and this was the great line as a close, he said, I'm not the person, and this, I want you to think about this line, I'm not the person who wants to look up to the clouds. I want to look down in front of me and fix the potholes I'm about to step in. And with that, as soon as he closed with that line as a question from Chris Anderson on the stage, again, equal to Al Gore's standing ovation, it was an absolute eruption in the room. Let me say it again. I'm not the person who wants to look at the clouds. I want to look down right in front of me and fix the potholes in front of me. And I wrote down massive applause, and then I said, what's that say? What does that say about today, and what does that say about our ideas that are floating and not landing? What does that say about the idea of esoteric and kind of this idea of playing in the high and not getting it to the ground, and the need for us to be more grounded, more pragmatic? Is it in the context and the impulse, in the pulse of the political environment we're in right now? Is it in the pulse and the correctness of the, or the topicalness of the ISIS and the crisis around terrorism right now? People want resolve, they want fix, they want stability, they want to be kind of in this place of stability and calm and fixing as opposed to maybe less creating. So where's our role, and what is your role in that idea? Ken Lacavara got on the stage, who was a paleontologist, and he talked about, and I just love this, he said, I'd like to talk to you more about how to find a dinosaur. So I want to share with you with that is that I wrote this down. It blew me away how I was finding the analogs and the symmetry between how he as a paleontologist finds a dinosaur and how I can learn from his 1, 2, 3. His 1, 2, 3. One is find rocks of the right age. You can't work in finding dinosaurs if you're not working in the right context, so you have to find the right environment and the right rocks. Secondly, they must be sedimentary. They must be of dirt and kind of that level of kind of granule. And number three, they have to be, the parts of the bones must be exposed. You can't be digging for the bones. They actually must be exposed inside of the rock. So find the rocks of the right age. They must be sedimentary, and they have to be, parts of the bones must be exposed. And then he said, why do we study ancient past? And I wrote down, it gives us perspective and humility. He wrote down perspective, and I wrote down humility. And I get teased from one of my best friends, Courtney Farrow, who a lot of you guys know, for never wanting to look back and always wanting to look forward. But he made me think about the idea of looking back in order to have perspective, and not only perspective, but humility, because there's so much before us that was greater than us. Norman Lear got on the stage, and it's a 93-year-old classic legend. It was really powerful. He talked about, and I love this idea, he talked about the idea of living your life in acts. And as a guy who created TV and then TV producer, then movie producer, and then political activism as his third act, I love the idea of him talking about his life in acts. And then immediately, because I was 1 week out from my 50th birthday when I was at TED, I thought about what act am I in and what act am I about to take on. And I think it's just a nice lens. And here's something else I love that Norman said. He said, I learned the foolishness of the human condition, and it served as my springboard for all creative. Let me say that again. I learned the foolishness of the human condition, and it served as the springboard for all my creative. And he used that in his creativity as a TV producer and movie producer, and I'm sure he's using that in a very comical, fun, sensible way around his political activism right now. Keo Stark, by the way, how much time do I have, guys?
You got a few more minutes.
A few more minutes. Everybody okay? Send tweets, go to TEDxRVA and tweet something, go to comment on Facebook. What else? Anything else,
That's good,
Doug?
that's good.
We good? Everything good? Everything's great here at the Curator House, everybody. Don't be worried. Keo Stark got on the stage, and she talked about, she walked out, and again, you guys know by now, I love when someone walks out on the stage or walks into a conversation, or I meet someone with a level of authenticity, and in minutes, I get their belief system. And she walked out, and she said, I believe that talking to strangers can be a profound and liberating thing. I believe that talking to strangers can be a profound and liberating thing. And why it works. One is it's a quick interaction with no circumstances. Use your senses, not your fears. Number two is a bias comes with people we know to understand us and not with strangers. And then it talked about the idea of when traveling, keep this in mind for those travelers, if you're traveling down to the market today or traveling to Hawaii tomorrow, keep this in mind. Every day, think about this. When traveling, get one stranger to see yourself as an individual. Who counts and matters? We all do. These small fleeting moments, this idea of fleeting intimacy in small moments of feelings. People meet disclosure with disclosure. I love that line. Think about the lines, think about the power of language, and think about these easy frames and easy kind of orientations around language that might just help you see what you need to be seeing. Noah Zandon got on the stage, and he talked about this idea of how to talk and speak like a visionary. And I'm going to give you the three things he said in terms of talking like a visionary. Number one is, and this one I needed because this is so contradicting in terms of talking about vision and future, and it's what I do as a career, is I help people see, and he helped me step back and understand and gave me a little bit of context, a little bit of, I need to think harder about that. He said, first, focus on the present when you're trying to talk like a visionary. Average 15% about the now. Bring the vision to now. The present tense trumps the future tense. Number two, more easy to understand, speak in simple, clear, and topical cause and effect simple language. And number three is let the audience experience the vision. And when I thought about that one, let the audience experience the vision, think about sensory and what that might look like. Bring them completely in. Number one is focus on the present when talking like a visionary. Number two, speak in simple and clear topical cause and effect terms. And three, let the audience experience the vision. Little source of inspiration, a little bit of mental sorbet. If you're not familiar with the art project Humanea, it's Humanea. A really, really beautiful artistic woman stood on the stage, and she wasn't getting me in the first 2 minutes. In the last 5, she grabbed my attention when she started showing the visuals. And Lloyd, you'll love this one. If you don't know this, you should look at this. It's a art project where she matches the skin color of a person with a Pantone color. And it's this beautiful composite of people and showing that we're all equal, because a Pantone color is nothing more than a color. And by democratizing us to a Pantone color, it shows us that I'm like Corey, and I'm like Lloyd, and I'm like Doug, and I'm like Farah. It was just absolutely an honest and smart interpretation of getting at this idea of we're all the same. We're all the same. We're just a Pantone color and one flesh difference away from each other. I just love that idea. And if you take that practice Brian Stevenson around the idea of slavery isn't evolved, it's not gone, it's just evolved. Maybe things like this can help get at that idea. Al Gore said, when you know what is right, the will to act is a renewable resource. And I don't care if he wrote it or his speechwriter wrote it, but when you know what is right, the will to act is a renewable resource. Back to Adam Grant from Originals, who's the organizational psychiatrist. Number 1, originals are late to the game. Not being an early adopter or a procrastinator, not in the early stages, not in the back stages, but right in that sweet spot in the middle. One thing that procrastinating does allow you to do is it allows you to kind of process and kind of exercise a little bit of what might be happening here, and it gives you a little bit of guidance in terms of what's happening in order for you to act. And that, but the other idea that he threw out, that whole idea of the advantage of a first mover, is really a myth, because it's this idea of when you act first, you're acting out of a lack of context. And if you're right just beyond that, it's something that happens in much more genius and much more magic, as you've got the context of the first mover. If you're familiar with how to create a movement video, you should watch that again, or if you haven't watched how to create a movement, Google that. And it's been shown on the TED stage. It's classic of a guy standing on a hill at a concert, and he starts dancing like a freak, and then the second guy that comes up starts dancing with him, and then there's thousands that follow. And the second guy was actually the original guy, the original. He was the person that followed the fast follower to be the person who brought enough context, enough credibility and awareness that others people could join. So he said originals are late to the game. Originals often do feel doubt and fear because they feel like they're too late. They feel as if they missed the boat. And the last thing that original has is they have a lot of bad ideas, because they're just in that sweet spot of they have enough context, they haven't waited too long, but they do have a lot of bad ideas, which are in fact leading to good ideas. He also talked about this idea of the opposite of deja vu is ouvre déjà, seeing something you've seen several times, but now with fresh eyes. So ouvre déjà is seeing something you've seen several times, but now with fresh eyes, and you're afraid. Whatever, that doesn't make sense. Moving on. There's this thing called the U.S. Digital Service, which I was really enlightened by, and I love their mission. And this really humble woman walked on the stage, small and kind of meek, and she said, "Hi, I'm with the U.S. Digital Service, and I'd like to give you our mission. Our mission with a network of startups to help accelerate government at a lower cost is this: to build a more awesome government for the people, by the people, today." And how she does that is she gets this extra hours and almost internships from all the startups around the world that do software and digital creation and development, and they take internships and they go up to DC or virtually, and they work on making government better, making government awesome. The way they do it are 4 ways. They recruit the best talent for short tours. Number 2 is they pair them with civil servants. Number 3 is they target them towards the biggest issues. And number 4 is they provide air cover all the way up to the President of the United States. Check out the U.S. Digital Service. Are we done?
No, do you want to go ahead and take a question?
Yeah, I'll take a question.
Move on, go on.
Yeah. Questions. Wait, let me see if there's anything left. I'm good. Questions. What do we got? How do I do this?
So the first question is from Sartaj Anand,
Hi, Sartaj.
and he asks, how do you come up with the theme every year?
How do we come up with the theme every year? It's a great question. And it's one of those really kind of, it is art, not that, but it is more art than it is science. And the first year we launched TEDxRVA with a very simple, easy to understand curatorial lens, which was Create. And one of the reasons why we created Create as a curatorial lens was because it was the first year of TEDx, the first year of TED for many people in the community. We wanted to make it very accessible and make the entry ramp one that people could walk onto and be kind of consumed with and involved with fast and not overwhelmed. We then went into, what was the second year? Reblank, recalibrate, readjust, refresh, reimagine, etc. because we wanted people to now engage themselves. So we left it blank for them to fill in the blank. The next year was uncommon. Thank you, Farah. And uncommon was this idea of we felt like we were, and this was more speaker-led. We were finding really uncommon stories and uncommon ideas, and we thought that uncommon as a word could capture the zeitgeist of all the things we were finding as a curatorial team. That is kind of an explanation on the first three. This fourth one, I put a little bit of my heavy hand as a curator into this one, and it usually comes from a collective effort. I did kind of throw this one in early and wanted to see how it baked, but I kind of knew I'd like it to end up there, and I'm glad it did. And it took a life when Diane O'Neill and Lloyd kind of put some really beautiful words and imagery behind it. But it was artful because I think Richmond is in a place right now, and this is, again, us trying in our humble effort to try to capture the zeitgeist of what feels going on in Richmond, and I feel there's a lot of artful things going on. And I wanted to kind of remove ourselves from a little bit of the dark and the heavy and move us up to the more artful. And yes, art and ICA and VMFA and all the different things going on in the community of arts and culture are an obvious part of that, but it's not that is artful. It is all those other artful conversations, artful debate, artful philanthropy, artful advocacy, artful education that we want to put on the stage and put this idea of the process, the method, and the outcome as it relates to artful. So we have a little bit of a codification behind it. We broke it down to the process, the method, and the outcome of artful. And on the stage that day, I hope you will see examples of the process of being artful, the methods of being artful, and then the outcomes of being artful. And so it's a little bit of an artful science, no pun intended again, but it's really about finding the word that best gives us curatorial kind of a pathway and also gives a way for the speaker to kind of guide themselves and build something. What's up? Next?
Next we have a question from L Street, and she asks, on April 9th, the day after TEDxRVA, what recommendations do you have to continue artful ideation throughout the year in Richmond?
Wow, Elle, hello, I know you, and hello, 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 and it's a great question. How do we continue the momentum? I think it's always one that we debate and we kind of cycle through in conversations so many times. What is it we do? I want us to all back up and always remember the guiding principle on TED, and why TED is such a powerful worldly phenomenon is it's built on a very simple premise of ideas worth sharing. And you are seeing that the TED community of TED in Vancouver and then the TEDx's around the world of 15,000 right now, we're going through that really interesting razor edge kind of debate and conversation of how much of it is what is put on the stage to be taken in for you to walk out and do with what you would do with it on your own, or how much direction does the TEDx and the TED audience and the TED curator or agenda drive you to that agenda of doing something. My philosophy is that the ideas we're sharing are ones that are pure and beautiful, and it's our goal to put on things on the stage that have some source of inspiration and some inspiration for self-action behind them. I was with a reporter this morning, as I mentioned, and I was going through the litany. They literally, if we documented them, hundreds of outcomes that have come as a result of TEDx. And it was Paul Spicer from Grid, and we're talking about how Paul might take all those great outcomes that have come out of TED and TEDx in this community over the last 4 years, out of people taking action and behaving differently. And so my request of you, my humble offer and just hope of you as a fan of TEDx and TED as a brand is to hear the idea we're sharing and self-actualize it. Make something and do something with it. That doesn't mean that there won't be organized ways in terms of doing that. There are focus groups, there are groups getting together post-TED and saying what I heard on the stage, so I heard on the stage, so what we might do with that. There's formal ways of doing it and informal ways of doing it. But the informal is the way that I think that's the most powerful and we see the most net results. But if you'd like to get more involved on the formal side of that, please keep in contact and we will line you up with the right people for sure.
Next question.
We have another question from Sartaj, and he asks, how do you serve your community?
And I'm not sure, Sartaj, thanks for another question. I don't know if you mean by me serving the community. I would hope not. I think it's more about how you serving the community and how we all serve the community. I think my first reaction to that is you find the thing that you're most passionate about. And my wife and I, Jill, have a deep, deep passion for community and children and art. And so those are the places we come together. And Art 180 is one of our favorite places for putting time and effort in our passions because it's a combination of children using art to turn their lives around 180 degrees. And it's a place that we call home in terms of where we put our place. My wife owns a children's bookstore because she believes that children's literacy is massively important. So she provides time and effort, up to 100 hours a week of her time and effort serving the community through this little thing called BBGB on Carey Street. And so it's finding your passion and then finding the most natural place for you to activate that. And it doesn't have to be in the big form of a TEDx, or it doesn't have to be in the big form of a bookshop or donations or time served in an Art 180. It can be small mentoring and meeting with a person who needs a little bit of your advice. So I would break down what your passion is, and then I would break that down into what your passion in action is. And some of you have heard me talk about my passion being soccer, and if I broke it down into action, it'd be physical, outside, international, and it's strategic. And those attributes of soccer are the things I hope to do every day to serve my community. And I think more than anything is being conscious around it. It's just being conscious and waking up and realizing that part of your day is actually the responsibility of you. Part of your day is to serve the community. I think that's more than anything at all what it's about, and then your behaviors and actions will follow that intention.
Okay, and as a final question, you actually got a couple of questions from this. So a couple of people were inspired by your conversation about in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So Risa and Andy actually both asked the same question, which is, what speaker in Vancouver struck you as being artful?
Huh.
And what would be what speaker in Vancouver would have best represented artful for our local show?
Wow, that's a great question. So I think Rihanna Giddens, and she's an artist, so it was a very natural one, but it was not about what she put on the stage in the form of her singing and her vocal expertise. It was the conversation she had around how she artfully crafted dialogue, which led to meter and rhyme, which led to rhythm, and which led to lyrics. How she built and created an artful approach to how she created her product, which was lyrics, rhythm, and rhyme on the stage in the form of voice and song. And I think that was beautiful. I think another, and I hate to go there because it sounds so commercial, but Joe Gibbia from Airbnb really took an artful, I am an Airbnb user, Airbnb and both Uber. Both of those founders got on the stage and they talked about how their business model evolved and where it came from. And as a person who uses both of them, especially Uber, almost weekly, I kind of used it out of a little bit of reticence because I believe the yellow cab's a great place to live part of your life because it's full of soul and culture, and you're supporting a really important thing called that yellow cab. But the black town car pulling up 2 minutes later is not a bad thing. But when they talked about the idea of how their business model evolved, I saw them absolutely as artful because they got to the absolute essence of what the need was in the community, and they almost did it from a necessity map. What's the most necessity? What is the biggest necessity or biggest undesirable in the world? And that was, one, finding a good place to live, and two, getting a prompt car response. They work from a deep, deep place of anthropologic and ethnographic places in an artful way and built a business model out of it. So I think those two entrepreneurs and Rihanna, the artist, that's how I would answer that one. And I actually did make an ask of Rihanna to come, but she was busy, so we might try to get her next year.
Awesome. So you want to close out?
Yeah. Let me just close out by saying thank you. A humble thanks again to the volunteers that are working on TEDx. A massive thank you to it's now up to about 700 people have already registered to buy tickets. 700 could be on 800. We're going to close out soon with the next couple 300, so please sign up soon. Those people that join up and sign up by a commitment of paying some money and spending the time on that Friday every year, it just means the world to us, and we hope we deliver on another great day for Rich. So with that, join us on April 8th. Don't let it be a somber moment because I'm emotional about hoping that we deliver something beautiful on that day. Have a great weekend. We love you, and cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy.